Hello. So Jeremy Corbyn says important issues are being overshadowed by the Labour psychodrama that's happening right now in Parliament. Let's have a look and see what he says.
Jeremy Corbyn, very good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, you're very welcome. Nice to see you.
Have you had a bit of deja vu, bit of muscle memory of when you were challenged yourself? Oh, obviously, Keir Starmer hasn't been challenged yet, but of those moments?
Well, he's got a coup going on. Yes, of course I do have a lot of memories of that. A weekend when I got phone calls, regularly half-hour intervals of people resigning from the shadow cabinet, and then deputations saying I should resign and disappear. And I pointed out that I was elected by the membership and the union supporters, not by Labour MPs. And we had a very stormy meeting of the Parliamentary Labour Party on the Monday evening following this. And it was horrendous. Abuse was thrown at me for about an hour.
I thought he was actually a good leader for Labour at the time. I thought he was actually all right. I mean, I thought it was bang out of order that Labour threw him under a bus, but I mean, if you didn't want him to be leader, why elect him?
By a lot of Labour MPs who probably can't remember it now, or choose not to.
Yeah, I think the latter, yeah.
And then I went outside into Parliament Square and there were 10,000 people there wanting me to challenge or accept the challenge and run for leader again, which I did, and I won with more votes than the previous time.
So
there is a point that I'm basically making,
yeah,
apart from my personal memory of it, is that this drama is being played out in Westminster to the exclusion of all public discussion and debate. It's all about a psychodrama between 3 or 4 individuals. Where's the public? Where's the issues of poverty? Where's the inequality issues?
Yeah, no, exactly.
So to that...
Exactly, you know, everyone's too busy looking at Keir Starmer's job and all the people who are challenging him for him. Where's all the talk of all the other stuff that's important in this country that needs to be discussed and looked at and dealt with? It's not happening. It's being overshadowed.
That issue, and I know you've disagreed with a lot of what Keir Starmer has done, but purely on strategy advice, do you think he should stick to his guns? If a leadership race is triggered, your advice, if you were advising him, would be fight, because you've got the democratic mandate and no one else does at this point.
I think the only thing he would seek advice from me would be about the future of Arsenal Football Club.
Well, we could all discuss that and be hopeful, but specifically...
No, what my view is, if you believe in something, then you believe it, and you should go out and say so. And if there is a core belief that he believes is under attack from somebody else, then take it to the electorate and get a decision on it. But it's not in the character of Starmer, Streeting, or indeed of the other potential candidates to do that. They see the whole thing as the internal bubble of politics. And this is really back to the sort of 1950s style, when the Labour Party had apparently great ructions. Most of those ructions were actually played out within the Parliamentary Labour Party. So what we're doing is concentrating into a very intense political bubble. And yesterday, as a spectator, it was bizarre. Saw all these Labour MPs being pursued by the Whip's office to be dragged into meetings with Keir Starmer to be told what to do.
Do you think there will be a leadership race?
Hard to know. I think yes. Probably. I would say probably yes, but who knows?
Not
West
yet.
Streeting may not have the numbers.
No.
And I would imagine that those that had privately possibly said to Streeting they would back him, we don't know who they all are. Now that Angela Rayner has apparently paid her debts to the HMRC, she may decide to contest as well. It's almost mathematically impossible to have 3 candidates other than Starmer.
It was like what I said, they're all waiting to see what happens with Andy Burnham in the Makerfield by-election. If Andy Burnham wins that by-election, then I think that only one of them might challenge. But if Andy Burnham loses, then that's it, gloves off, they're all going in. So that'd be Rayner, West Streeting, I reckon Ed Miliband, Powell, maybe Jess Phillips, maybe even but yeah, definitely there'll be a bunch of them going in. So they're all just sitting and waiting for what's happening with Andy Burnham at the moment.
It's certainly difficult to have 2 because they need 81 each, and so I think some of those might then say, well, actually, we'll go with Rayner or we'll go with nobody.
Of the names that are, a lot of people are talking about, you mentioned a couple of them, Wes Streeting, Angela Rayner, Keir Starmer, Andy Burnham. Of those four, who do you respect the most?
Well, I obviously know them all. I worked with Andy, I worked with Keir, and I worked with Angela.
Personally, I'd say Angela Rayner, because I think Labour Party need a woman to lead them. They've never had that before, whereas the Conservatives, I think, have 1, 2, 3. They've had it 3 times now. 4, actually. They've had 4 leaders, but they've had 3 women prime ministers. So, yeah, no, I reckon they should go with Angela Rayner. Andy Burnham, if Andy Burnham wins the by-election and he is in the leadership race, it's going to be pretty close between Angela Rayner and Andy Burnham for me. I don't know, it'll be pretty close. Pretty close.
Andy always wanted to represent Manchester. He's been very effective as Mayor of Manchester. I think some of his more recent pronouncements about defence spending and things are rather strange because they're moving well away from the sort of social justice agenda that I assumed he was going to follow. But I think he's got a logistical problem of he's not an MP, and I suspect he won't be an MP by the time the contest comes around. But there's also another issue. What does it say to the electorate? You say to a unnamed as yet Labour MP, sorry, you've got to resign to make way for somebody else. There's some precedents for this, and they're not all good ones. Harold Wilson tried that trick over 2 by-elections, and he lost one very heavily, even though it was a very safe Labour seat, because the electorate, it was in Leighton, thought that Ted Sorensen was a good MP, and they didn't see why he should be pushed out by Wilson in order to make...
I don't agree with that either, because when you give up your seat, your political career is over, more or less. Like, that's it. You don't have a say in Parliament no more. You've lost your seat. You've quit.
Way for a failed Foreign Secretary.
So do you think all of this, the psychodrama that we've all been talking about, will do really serious damage to the Labour Party? And can it still be avoided if we continue as we are without a leadership race?
I think the damage has already been done to the Labour Party, as the results showed last week, because it is hollowed out on membership, it's hollowed out on activism. And what I found in the local elections was there were older voters were, in some cases, voting Labour because they always had. And when you sort of drill into it, in a very friendly conversation, why? They said, don't know, just do. And they didn't feel any affinity to what they believed the Labour government or the Labour Party was saying. And they didn't.
My family and me used to be Labour growing up and that, but everything that's happened so far with the disability and the trans rights and stuff like that, I've lost absolute all respect for them at the moment, and they're not doing nothing to fix it. In fact, they're quite keen on making things worse, but we'll see what the future holds. But at the moment, I'm putting all my support in the Green Party because of that.
Didn't know what it was either. And I think one of the big problems of Starmer's government is it's not obvious what it's there for, because there isn't a clear objective. There isn't an objective that we will totally eliminate all child poverty, that we will totally fully fund the NHS or anything else. It's all a bit sort of managerial, and managerialism isn't very exciting.
But I'm confused then where we should be heading if you're, making the point in your own leadership challenges, about democracy and who has a mandate. I mean, the Prime Minister very clearly has a mandate from the PLP, from the country. And maybe Starmerism doesn't have a clear definition, but a big part of his challenge in 2024 was to get rid of the previous government, which he did.
Yes, but getting rid of the other party is not a programme other than to get rid of the other party. And this is say what you're actually going to do. And I think it's the lack of clarity of the Labour manifesto in 24. And whilst the government does do some good things occasionally, I supported, for example, the Renters' Bill, but the Renters' Bill lacked the fundamental point, which it needs to control rents, that sort of thing. So all along the line, it seems that they pull back because they're frightened of appearing too radical.
What do you want to happen in the next month?
I would like us to have a clear declaration from the government. They are serious about intervening in conflicts around the world to try and bring about peace. The King's speech yesterday didn't even mention the UN, didn't mention anything about that. All it mentioned was spending more on arms and weapons. We can't go on forever spending more on arms and weapons without some strategy of ending the wars. I'm not defending the wars, I'm just saying that. And then I would like them to have some absolutely clear strategy on the crisis of the living standards of people. Why can't we, for example, have a government that says, if you carry on raising food prices the way you are to the supermarkets and all the rest, we will intervene and control those prices. The Wilson government did that
that's exactly,
to control inflation in the 70s. It's not unprecedented.
What we missed out on having him as a prime minister. Imagine if he was a prime minister or Labour had just stuck with him. Like, I don't know. I reckon it would have been good.
Dramatic that shows they're actually trying to deal with the ever-present crisis of poverty amongst so many people.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, everything he says, obviously I'm not going to agree with every single thing he says, but the things he comes out with most of the time, I'm like, yeah, I'm totally on board with that. I agree.
Just finally, I mean, we know what you stand for in politics, and you've been clear about that and passionately stood up for it for many decades now. It's interesting looking at the results last week. You know, we're talking about 5-party, 7-party system now. It's a big spread depending on what you're looking at. And I guess a couple of options there got quite a lot of votes that, you know, might share some of the views you share about.
4 of them that are pretty.
Do you wonder whether there's space also for your party, or is it time to draw a line under that?
We ran some candidates. We weren't ready to run hundreds. We ran some, but we also worked with independent groups in Kirklees, in Blackburn, in Southport, Newham, Redbridge, Tower Hamlets, and Bradford, and a lot of independents were elected around the country. Broadly the same kind of strategy, building more housing and local authority intervention. I think there's a very important need for a coherent left voice, which will drag politics a bit further to the left and be that voice. And that is what we're building on. We're now starting to set up branches of the party all over the country, and I think we're going to be...
But the Greens are ahead of you on that regard.
Well, they are, in a way, but I think
they've had a party for
Greens,
longer, and
whilst
they have
there
a
are
foothold in a
socialists
lot of
in the
different
Greens,
places. Well, yeah, because they have a foothold in a lot of different places. They've been doing things for a lot longer than what his party has.
Not a socialist organisation. And I also detect there are quite big differences on policy ideas between the newer Green members and the older Green members, and I suspect they're going to have some problems managing that.
Jeremy Corbyn, thanks for coming. Good to see you.
We'll have to wait and see, but yeah.
Pleasure. Thank you.
But yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. Only time will tell. But yeah, no, I agree with him on a lot of points he was making there. He was right. But yeah, I'll let you crack on. Hit that like and subscribe. Until next time, peace.